Hello and welcome. Today is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2016. This is Paul Sandhu coming to you with another episode of Wake Up and Live Radio. I have back on the line with me today Mark Sargent, who was my very first Flat Earth interview back, I believe, in October of last year. And that was a couple of months after I had become aware that we live on a plane and not on a madly spinning globe racing through space to Never Never Land in an ever expanding universe. So now to set the record straight, I have brought Mark back on, and we will be talking again today about the topic of the flat Earth. Since Mark is the person that first brought this to my attention, and for which I'm grateful, and since then it seems to have exploded on YouTube, where there are literally like now tens of thousands of videos, and some.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So without any further ado, hello and welcome, Mark.
Hey, how are you? Thank you very much for having me so early in the morning. I know it's not early where you are, but it's pretty early here.
Oh yeah, okay. You're on the West Coast, are you? Or are you
Yeah.
in Central? Okay.
No, so it's 7 a.m. here, which is totally fine. That's great.
Yeah, if you're an early bird, it's good. I'm usually up around 6 or whatever. As you get older, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I don't drink coffee though, so it's a little tougher for me. I have to. I had to like to get up and take a shower like 6 something just to wake up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you getting up so early in
I
the
don't.
morning to
No worries.
do this program. So last time we did, what happened? Like I was mentioning in my introduction, that a few months ago, well, 6, 8 months ago now, when I first discovered this topic,
Yeah.
and I came across your videos on the flat Earth clues, and they were very well put together, and that's what we discussed on our last program. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but we discussed some of the major ones. So I figured this might be a good point to just jumping off point to revisit that and see, since that time, is there any other new information that you have added to your flat Earth clues? Uh, that you would
Yeah.
like to share with us?
Well, most of the people, anyone that's following the Flat Earth Clues, knew that I did Clue 12, which was called Realize. That was done, oh geez, late last year, which was a look into how we are susceptible to illusion. Because a lot of people had said, well, I couldn't be fooled. Part of the reaction, part of why people get so polarized and so angered about this is they feel like they've been tricked. And nobody, if you're not into street magic, if you don't like somebody pulling a coin out of your ear, if it bugs you, and what I try to say is like, look, everyone was tricked with this, and we're easy to trick from a species standpoint. We are very susceptible to illusion, and so Clue 12 was kind of going into how we did the illusions. And then after that, because not that many people, believe it or not, the way I laid out the clue was I tried to come up, with a finale. I know I've done Clue 12 and Clue 13, which I'm saving for when this place actually opens up. But then I started really focusing on something that I had said in the later clues, which was I was looking for whistleblowers, people to come forward, people with testimonials. And that's what I really started focusing on, because Truth Frequency Radio gave me my own little show called Strange World. And that was really great. But I didn't want to do whatever, other people were interviewing other flat earthers, which was great, but I really wanted to add more I wanted to keep the movement moving forward. So I started looking into the whistleblowers, and as of right now, I've got 12. I'm looking at the list because I got to the point where I can't even memorize them. But people from the private sector and the military sector that are coming forward and saying, yeah, all our instruments, all our career work is confirming what everyone is saying, and that is the world is not spinning. It is most likely a stationary disk that we're all inside.
Is that, yes, speaking of that, the experts that you have had on your programs, and a lot of them have, like the missile instructor, navigators, radar operators, a lot of people with the technical backgrounds, the guy who does industrial walls and such things,
Yeah.
that bring into question, everything that basically NASA, and NASA always keeps coming up in this conversation. Okay,
Yeah, always.
because I guess they are the central organization that controls the flow of information in regards to the true nature and shape of our world. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And in fact, I had a debate with a scientist, Brian Dunning, the other day, and it was weird because we had this weird awkward moment where he realized from a scientific standpoint where the problem lied when science versus the flat Earth, which was because I asked him, I said, look, if you're a scientist, and this is for anyone that's listening out there, if you're a man of science and you were told, okay, you're going to pick an average man off the street and you're going to prove to him it's a globe, how would you do it? And he paused because he'd apparently done enough research. He's going, you know what? Couldn't be done. He goes, short of me giving that person $20 million and putting him in a rocket and sending him up there, there's nothing you can do down on the ground to prove it's a globe. I mean, yeah, of course there's math, but what's math going to do? You can
Right.
And so we both came to the conclusion. It's like, okay, so everything, both pro and con, rests with the people that control the skies, the people that control the rockets, and by that, the space program. And that was a really interesting moment because it's like, okay, from a science standpoint, it's like, okay, we need the evidence, and therefore you're looking to them for evidence, is why it always comes back to NASA. And from a flat Earth standpoint, same thing. It's like, okay, show us, since you guys are the only ones that can lock this thing down, where's the evidence? And that's where that's where the opinions differ widely, because science is going, no, there's evidence, and we're saying no, there's not. And if you don't mind, there was a quote from that I wanted to read real quick because I just found it recently, which was it was from George Orwell. Did you hear about this one?
No.
This one was really interesting, which was he actually did an article on the flat Earth back in the 1940s, 1946.
Is that right?
Yeah, in the Tribune, December 27th. And he was talking about the theory and he was talking about the weak arguments because this was back when we didn't know much. And he went on about these weak arguments about how to prove the globe. And he admitted they were weak. And then at the very end of the article, he says most people, if asked to prove that the Earth is round, would not even bother to produce the rather weak arguments I have outlined above. They would start off by saying that everybody knows the Earth to be round, and if pressed further, would become angry. In a way, Shaw is right. This is a credulous age, and the burden of knowledge which we now have to carry is partly responsible. And I found that very interesting because this was 1946. This was 12 years before NASA.
Right.
And you're asking people, and they're responding the same way they are now. It's like the knee-jerk reaction when I say, they're like, well, no, we know the Earth is round. It's like, yeah, but in 1946, why? And probably for generations before that, it's like, well, obviously we know the Earth is round. Really? Because there's no NASA. How do you know the Earth is round? Now they can at least come back and say it's NASA.
We got these fake pictures. Speaking of George Orwell, very interesting. Actually, I was revisiting his book 1984 because I'm doing a little video on this flat Earth and cognitive dissonance, Mm-hmm. And Orwell's book is generally considered to be about totalitarianism, the New World Order, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the real genius of that book is that it's about language. It's about programming people's minds. And one term that he invented is called doublethink.
Yeah.
And doublethink is basically different than cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is that people, when they're faced with something that contradicts what they have always believed, it sends them into a state of shock, basically, right? Yeah. And then they push it aside and say, no, we did, which is exactly what you were talking about, the reaction that Orwell spoke. But doublethink is different. Doublethink is that people can hold two contradictory ideas at the same time in their mind and believe them to be true at the same time. Like we understand the water cannot curve.
Yeah.
Yet people believe that there's all this Pacific Ocean, which takes up, for example, one whole side of this supposed globe, is just curved and for thousands of miles and hanging off the side. Yeah. See, that's doublethink. So we have been trained so much in this doublethink through the educational system and everything else that people have literally become insane.
Yeah.
And that's what Orwell was talking about. He wrote in there that the elites are insane, and that's what they're doing to us.
That's an excellent point. I hadn't even thought about that. And I had looked at the curved globe, and I actually believe that in a perfect, if there was space, that, on a globe that was suspended in space, not doing anything, that, water could stick to it uniformly. I'm going, I buy that. But that all goes out the window as soon as you start spinning it, because then the centrifugal force is going to condense the water and it's going to move. And, if you believe in mainstream physics. And so, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, yeah, we all know water is flat, but we also believe that it curves.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great one. I
So
hadn't heard that.
people have been turned into double thinkers, and that's what he wrote about has come to pass. You see the evidence of that every day.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
getting back to some of these more, I'm going to do that a little bit because in his book, there's a book within a book, which is a little essay about 3 chapters long. Amazing, amazing. And he talks about Antarctica and how, all these mad experiments that are going on and stuff. So the man was in the know, obviously, because
The man was in the know.
right,
Yeah.
right. He
Yeah.
was in British intelligence, so obviously he knew.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, like what's some of the new technical people that science people, for example, that you have interviewed, and they have presented some information since the last time that we spoke that would confirm, like you said, military people, civilians, whatever, they're coming forth and they're saying that
Yeah.
all their practical,
Yeah. All their
like the
practical information.
surveyors or whatever, for example, whatever they do in practice is based on a flat Earth.
Yeah, the surveyor. I mean, the military guys were very, very good, no question, because they have access to technology that we
Right.
don't.
Right.
So, the missile instructor. We all know at this point. Anyone that's watching this show, the missile instructor had access to 2-inch beam radars, which you shouldn't be able to pin. To go ship to ship at 60 miles because a ship is not that high off the water, and since water is perfectly flat, and you're in the middle of the ocean, so it's not like you got any obstructions. And he's saying there's no way we can paint that target at 60 miles if the Earth is curved. That ship would absolutely be over the hill. And the scientist that I was arguing with the other night, not Brian Dunning, but the other guy, he was going, "No, well, it's obvious he's got it wrong. He's misunderstanding. He's bouncing it off the ionosphere." And he was like, "Dude, this guy trains in this radar system. He knows full well." But the military guys are very, very good. But some of the other guys from the civilian sector were equally, if not better. The career surveyor, a good old boy from back in Indiana, he was very, very interesting because he had done career surveying his entire life. 32 years, where he was doing big tracts of land. He wasn't just shooting land for your home or your neighbor's home. He was shooting at stuff for car factories and airport runways and shopping malls. Big tracts of land. And he had listened to a couple, again, these guys are just building on each other because everyone that, I don't even have to solicit these people. They just come to me and say, "I heard your interview with such and such. I have something to add. And what he was adding was that when surveyors go out and do their daily routine, they are taught from day one, they go treat the Earth like it's perfectly flat. Treat your parcel, everything that you're working on as it's perfectly flat. And initially, he thought, he asked when he was a young surveyor, he goes, "Well, what about the curvature of the Earth?" They said, "Don't worry about it." And they always kept reinforcing the same thing, which is treat your parcel of land. He goes, really imagine that the Earth is flat. Start your project from there. And what people aren't getting what I'm saying is, so imagine you are doing your little project and it's a square cracker. Eventually, your square cracker, because you're not alone in the middle of the desert, you're lining up against other square crackers, and those crackers end up lining up to each other perfectly. Always, front, back, side, they always line up to each other perfectly. And he goes, "Yeah, that's great in theory, but it doesn't make sense on a curved Earth because, as we all know, if it's a curve, if it's a globe, then eventually these crackers have to overlay. And it's like covering a basketball with wheat thins or whatever crackers you want, because eventually there's going to be gaps and there's going to be inconsistencies." He goes, "Even accidental," he goes, "there's no way that I could go 30 years in the surveying business." And he goes, "I knew everybody, and you're not going to butt up against a project and there's going to be some discrepancy in elevation." He goes, "In a curved situation, you're going, because if it's 8 inches per mile squared," he goes, one of his examples is really good. He goes, "Think of the length of a city."
Right.
Going from the end, that's a lot of projects from that end to that end. There's all these projects line up perfectly and nobody ever, and he goes, not only that, but it never even came up in conversation where it's like, where there was a discrepancy and someone says, "Oh, did you count for the curvature?" "No, did you?" they always lined up perfectly. And he goes,
Right, right.
that's impossible. And it was great. Just there was just this one guy. He summed up, his line was the same that we had heard so many times with other people, which was, yeah, everyone's heard of the curvature. That's what they all said. All of these guys said the same thing. Everyone's heard of the curvature. We just don't use it in everyday life. It's like
Right.
it's just a little footnote in the manuals that they do. It's like, here's my career. Oh yeah, by the way, there's this curvature thing. I'm just going to keep doing my 9 to 5 job. I'm never going to use that.
Right, right,
But
right.
so yeah, Surveyor was great.
Yeah, like when they build the transcontinental railways, for example.
Yeah,
I mean, especially when you're going across the continent from the East Coast to the West Coast,
yeah,
there should be a big rise in the middle,
yeah,
and your rail tracks, they would have to factor that in, that they would have to be curved and they would have to be bent and all that,
yeah,
and nothing, they're just like straight as an arrow. So
yeah.
that the highways, whatever,
Highways, pipelines.
right,
There was a guy from the pipeline industry. I never had him on, but we exchanged emails, and he was along the same road where he said, "Look, there's forget about railways. Pipelines are way bigger
sure,
pieces of things." He goes, we don't do any curvature when we do a pipeline, and everything lines up perfectly. You don't have to do any adjustments. He goes,
right,
and I laid those things for hundreds of miles. Never ever happened. How many examples do you want? And then with the water, like the Suez Canal, when that was designed, any curvature taken into effect there? There should have been, but there
sure, there
wasn't.
should have been, yeah,
Or the Roman aqueducts,
right,
whereas you're going from one end, you're bringing water from one end to the other. They would have run into that weird quandary where they would have tried to get water, and then this water would have stopped running. It would have just, because eventually it would have got to the point where it's like there's the water's just not moving forward anymore.
right.
But it was always perfect. How they built it adjusted for it, and you can't tell me they had a vast knowledge and accounted for it the entire time, and it worked perfectly.
No, yeah, I mean, they would have to, in that case, in canals especially, they would need to put locks all over
Yeah,
to make it work, but that doesn't happen. And even here on our Great Lakes, where I live in
yeah,
Ontario, like all the ships and everything is flat, and they go from one lake to the other, etc.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
They have great waterways here, and none of them have this curvature taken into account.
Yeah, yeah. The curvature is now. I will say this, as far as the curvature goes, because we really started pressing on this when this thing first started last year, and we did find out after a while that the curvature, at least forward and back, that's pretty easy to determine because that's just going over a hill. But side to side, much more difficult because the computer models that finally started surfacing showed that even if you got up even above weather balloon height, you wouldn't be able to see the curvature side to side, and so even though the flat earthers would look at some weather balloon shots and say that it looked flat, that didn't necessarily prove the flat earth. But what it did do, because it's saying, no, you got to get even higher than that before you see a curve. What it did do, though, is say, that anything that shows you the curve at weather balloon height or lower, like the Red Bull jump or any of the others,
Yeah, yeah.
those are complete fabrications because they're using fisheye lenses. And if people don't understand that by now what a fisheye lens is, you use it every day. It's called a peephole in your door.
Right.
Everyone knows when you look in the peephole in your door,
Yeah,
your
right.
hallway isn't curved, but that's what the lens does.
That's what I did a video on the Red Bull guy though, on his jump,
Yeah.
and if that curve like they showed in that video was real, the Earth
Okay.
would be only like maybe less than 5,000
Oh yeah.
miles in circumference.
Yeah.
That curve was so extreme from
Yeah.
that little height. Like if anything, if there was a curve, it would be so slight that you really would not even be able to tell. So
Yeah. But
obviously,
but main Yeah, but mainstream showed that picture. That's
yeah,
what killed me.
but
That's the
people,
picture you show. And
right, right,
people
right.
immediately think it's what you were saying. They don't think that's like, well, look, the entire Earth isn't just Arizona.
Right.
Yeah, you can't
Exactly.
it doesn't curve over that much. And of course, they made the mistake of when they were shooting it of leaving a normal camera inside the
Yeah.
capsule.
Yes.
So when the door opens,
Yeah.
oh look, it's
Straight.
flat.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
It's
So
great.
this trickery, people, they don't question it, and especially with NASA.
Yeah,
I mean, their trickery is now that once you start looking for these things, it becomes obvious. But to people that like again, don't want to see it, they won't
Yeah.
see it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the moon
Yeah.
landings, like we spoke about the last time, the moon landings,
Have not aged well.
not only not aged well, I mean, one of the questions that people should be asking is like, if we had the technology back in 1969 to go to the
Yeah.
moon, by
Yeah.
now, there should have been hotels on the moon, there should have been tourism, there should have been
Oh yeah.
it should be as common as flying. Like in flight, for example, it started in 1903. By 1940s, you had, not even before, in 20 years you had transcontinental flights. And in 27, like Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic, and then before you knew it, like people are flying all across the world in like 20, 30 years. So by
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
so
No.
so they don't
And,
question.
and everyone was expecting that too. We all saw the visions of the future where, the Jetsons cars
Right.
and it seemed that when it came to technology, a lot of other things moved forward, but aerospace was stunted. It was like they just like, no, we're not going to. But you're absolutely right. Colonies on the moon bases. Well, why didn't the Cold War escalate to
Right.
the moon? Well, it wasn't. It's again. I still was staggered that like once the Americans got there, it's like the Russians like, yeah, we don't need to go in there anymore. We can just let's
No,
shut
no.
it down. Just quit. We don't need, the space program, space race is over. It's like it wasn't a real race, it wasn't. And really, do you see a race where the Russians don't get there? It's like we're going to have more people, and then you have two different colonies and that whole thing. In fact, I was looking at some moon pictures the other day because I know people, especially in this country,
Right.
still want to hang on to the whole Apollo missions. It's like, man, you got to look at the photographs, on a decent monitor and take a look for yourself. There's too many things. It's too easy. Every frame, every shot, the part that they made the mistake with is they tried to make iconic. They didn't just take pictures; they took iconic pictures, and that's the
Right.
difference.
Right.
Everything was like, it's really going to send in an advertising firm and they're going to frame the shots?
Yeah.
Because when they're framing it, yeah, at first glance, it's like, wow, that's a really pretty shot. That's good for Life magazine. But the rest of it, there's too many technical flaws, like converging shadows, and there's no blast crater, and I don't know how you get the moon buggy off the thing, and why is that moon buggy even there?
I know exactly
It's-
how the heck did that little thing there. How did they get that moon buggy up there?
yeah,
One question which in regards to the subject, like where I live, we get snow in the winter,
yeah,
and I live kind of in the countryside, and you have fields and fields of snow, and
yeah,
when it's a sunny day, it's very reflective. Okay,
yeah,
it's like having a mirror.
yeah,
The Earth is ice and water, basically. The land is a very small part of the Earth.
true,
So when they take pictures from space, like they did from the moon, for example, like when
yeah,
we see the moon in the darkness, it's lit up, it's bright.
yeah,
I never see any pictures of the Earth shining. The Earth shine should be like
blinding,
20 times brighter than the moon.
yeah,
Should it not?
yeah, it should.
It should look like a big diamond or something. Have you ever seen a picture like that?
No, no. It's, there's a new term that I've been using, which is confirmation, and I stole it from somebody, and that is confirmation by omission, which is that NASA went, the old Shakespeare saying, "He doth protest too much," and
Right.
that is they went way, way out of their way to leave out things that we assumed was there. That's where the problem was, which was that the pictures of the Earth from space, for example,
Right.
the 1972 shot, the blue marble shot, which was not taken, wasn't even admitted until last year when the White House and Neil deGrasse Tyson and NASA, oh yeah, by the way, here's the second blue marble shot we took in 43 years. And that there's no videos of the Earth from space, but now people are even noticing even more stuff. Like there's no Max Malone has been doing just a great job where he knows it's like there's no footage of any vehicle leaving orbit or coming back from orbit. On top of it, he goes,
Right.
and then somebody else says, there's no pictures of any astronaut in an airlock.
Right. I saw that video. Good one. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like where they're in the airlock and they open the door. We all know it from the movies, but it never ever happens. There's just so many omissions where there should be things we always assumed there were. That was the big difference. It's like remember when I said that all the evidence relies when the people that are controlling the skies, and that is we assume the evidence is up there, but they didn't. there's so few things up there on so many levels that's where you're looking. It's like, oh, okay, what are you guys hiding? And why do you really not want to show the Earth? And the blue marble shot was staggering to me when the White House, which is why I put it in one of the front of my clips, where and I know you couldn't just sneak it in and just say, oh yeah, here was the blue marble shot. You actually had to tell people, but then it was mainstream news, and everyone on our side was going, you just confirmed everything we were asking. It's like,
Right.
so anything, just so you know, anything that came out from like the middle of last year, I don't care who it is, I don't count it. Because you can't just say, when we ask, hey, there's no shots of the Earth from space. Oh, okay, here's one. There's no videos of the Earth from space. Well, here's a few. And it's like, where did those come from? Oh, we just created them. There's a satellite right up there. And here's the moon traveling in front of it. It's like, where was that for the last 40 years? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's a million miles away. And then there was another shot from the moon, and the moon was underneath, and it was high def. But it just drove me insane. And they still, you ever seen there's a really good one out there, the Himawara satellite from Japan. Did you ever see that one?
I
It
believe
shows
I have. Yeah, I think
the
I did, yeah.
geocentric, so it shows all the weather patterns,
Right.
but the Earth isn't moving. And I'm going, that's a cheat. That's just lazy. Why don't you? How hard could it be? You got supercomputers, for God's sakes. Just
Right.
create the animation. Grab a Hollywood guy, create the animation, spinning him in the Earth from space, make sure all the weather patterns match. Yeah, it'll take a month or two to figure out, but do the work. Sorry,
Yeah, exactly. It's those kind of things which, when you start looking for them, then it becomes obvious, like those Russian spacewalks from the 70s or 60s or whatever. I mean, when you look at it now, it's like it's such a joke.
I know that you're way younger than me. You're a young guy, but
No, I'm not younger than you. You are younger than me, so that's okay.
I don't know about that. But but yeah, we grew up where we knew stop. If you grew up in the movies from the late 60s and early 70s, stop motion animation. You know that the limited technology and kids that are out there listening, it's stop, change the frame, take a picture, stop, take a page, and you have to keep doing that. But it creates this really chunky animation. And
Right.
the most notorious was the Sinbad series from way back when, with the skeletons and the hydras and all the monsters. And so you get used to the motion. You figure out the motion because it doesn't look like people, not exactly like people.
Right,
and so as soon as that astronaut did that, I was going, oh, how did I miss that? That is so unbelievably obvious. And Max Malone caught that one as well. And the Earth, and yet while that clunky animation is happening, the Earth below, that's still smooth.
I know,
That's
exactly.
still fine. But yeah, as soon as the helmet turned, it was like, because you do things in order. So they were notorious for not moving multiple things at once. That's the big stop motion key. It's like, you don't do multiple things because it confuses the guy that's setting it up. So
Right.
as soon as the head turned, as soon as the head stopped, it goes head stop, arm move, and then wave, right? I was going, really? That's what you're gonna do? But if you adjust the frame rate, they pulled it off, and no one caught it.
Yeah.
But yeah, now people are going to be analyzing every inch of footage and seeing if they can find more of that. That was great. I love that.
Exactly, like the space station, that's another one which is which really, when you start thinking about it, like how has this machine been up there for some 20 odd years, it is an impossibility that is just, at least like if they said, okay, we have this thing, we have to now decommission it after a couple of years or whatever, because it's going to wear out, it would make sense, but they just keeps. I don't care. No man-made object is going to last 20 years, like nonstop. It won't work.
No, one of my favorite guests, if not my favorite, because he came from a different angle that most people don't, was the industrial engineer that specialized in valves and seals. And when he called me, he said, "Look," he goes, "I can't tell you my name and everything because it's such a small industry.
Right.
The people that supply this to the military, there's only like 5 of these companies in the world.
Right."
And he goes, when I watch the ISS, everything from my industrial background, industrial engineering background, when I see this thing, he goes, the ISS and how they are advertising it and how they're saying the day-to-day operations run. He goes, it's impossible. It cannot work the way they're saying it is. There's too many things. There's too much maintenance. There's too many, because remember, he was specializing in valves and seals. He goes, there's the big one though was he goes the parts that they need replacing on a regular basis.
Yeah.
He goes, where are you making these? Because some have to be manufactured on site, and actually the Navy guys confirmed this, which was they said that every Navy vessel has a full blown machine shop.
Sure.
On board, because you have to make parts from scratch,
right,
to fit, because some of these tolerances are thousandth of an inch, human hair type stuff. And he goes, there's no machine shop on the ISS. He goes, nor would you even get it up there, because the machine shop is so big and heavy, and it uses a lot of power and heat and light, and it burns things. And he goes, that isn't there. So he goes, so how are you replacing things? He goes, not to mention, that's just the day-to-day stuff. He goes, not to mention that every 10 or 15 years, think of it like an aircraft, because it really is.
Sure.
He goes, you get this weird complete overhaul where you take the whole thing, you strip it down, because there's aircraft work different. It's different than cars. We all know that you use a part in a car till it wears out, like a fan belt.
Of course.
Or,
it wears out quickly too. And it's not that it's going to go 17,000 miles an hour for years before it wears out.
Exactly.
Right.
But with aircraft, you have to replace it. They replace it based on time, not based on wear. So it doesn't matter if the part looks perfect. They base it on statistics. So they say, no, that part's going to eventually go. Let's replace it. They just replace it with new parts.
Right. X number of hours it has to be replaced.
Hours. He goes, but that doesn't happen. All these guys, the ISS guys that are up there, they're flying around in, and all you see is they're in khakis and their socks and their polo shirts. You don't see any of them with wrenches. You don't see any of them covered in anything. They're not doing any maintenance. Oh yeah, every once in a while you'll see some guy go outside and turn a wrench, maybe, but most of the time they're not doing anything.
Right.
And it's impossible. But the short version of that is that the engineer in this case, who knew about as well as anybody how this thing works, he goes, it cannot work, cannot function the way it's going. And of course, funny thing is that after we're pushing this and just hammering on the ISS and hammering it on a daily basis with videos, now it's starting to slip that NASA's saying, oh yeah, we're going to decommission the ISS and we're not going to use it anymore, and we're going to go with a moon base instead of. It's like the thing we've been asking, why don't you have a moon base, really? And that, by the way, they can't fake a moon base. So you think faking something on the ISS is hard? From a technology standpoint, because remember, you're simulating zero gravity in the ISS, but on the moon you have to simulate 1/6 gravity. That's tougher because then you got to get all your weights right, and it's like, how you're going to see, because you can't necessarily do that in a zero G plane. You're going to have to do that with some CGI crap. You better get that completely right. So whatever object you're picking up or moving around, you got to remember it's only weighing 1/6 of what it is.
Right.
So you can't screw any of those up. I don't know how they think they're going to pull that off. That's going to be tough to do.
Yeah, it'll never happen. That's I guess that's just they keep okay. We're going to Mars. We're doing this. We're going to Pluto. And all that crap. It'll never come to pass.
Did you see that thing that Congress? There's a little story kind of circulating now where Congress is starting to grumble. I don't know who they're listening to, but I think they're kind of getting the idea. Because politicians, they listen to what's going on out there, and so they're saying, look, they're already starting to say that we don't think the Mars mission is even feasible. So why you keep asking for money? Because they already postponed it. That was what happened also since we talked last, and that was the Orion program. That's the Mars program. So you think Orion, think the Mars program. They were supposedly going to do this test launch, and they said, oh, there's a French piece of equipment that isn't ready, a French piece of science equipment. So we scrapped the launch altogether. We postponed it indefinitely, and now it's not at least until the end of 2018, and which means the first people aren't going to be until 2023. It's like you're just kicking the can down the road and hoping that when we get there, no one's going to remember, and you're never going to do anything. You might as well. If you're going to talk about the Mars mission now, you might as well talk about hydrogen fuel cell cars.
Right.
Those, whatever happened to those things?
Right.
Those never happened.
Right.
They just kept saying, "Oh, well, it's coming. It's coming." No, it's not. It's not happening.
Well, Werner von Braun I had read a statement from him when he at some point in the I don't know 40s or something he had said
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
about that the rocket, the size, if you were to go to the moon, the size of the rocket that would be needed
Yeah.
would be something like the height of the Empire State Building, and it would basically have to be so big that it would be impossible to get it off the ground. That it's not gonna, the rocketry can never be developed that is gonna actually send it out. It was something
Yeah.
to that effect, right? He made
Yeah,
that
yeah. Actually,
statement.
I've got the quote in front of me. If you want me to read it
Sure,
real quick.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. He said. He goes, "It is commonly believed that man will fly directly from the Earth to the moon, but to do this, we would require a vehicle of such gigantic proportions that it would prove an economic impossibility. It would have to develop sufficient speed to penetrate the atmosphere and overcome the Earth's gravity. And having traveled all the way to the moon, it must still have enough fuel to land safely and make the return trip to Earth. Furthermore, in order to give the expedition a margin of safety, we would have to use not just one ship, but a minimum of 3. Each rocket ship would be taller than the Empire State Building and weigh about 10 times the tonnage of the Queen Mary." And yeah, he wrote that in a thing called the writing Conquest of the Moon. And so here's your guy, right? Here's the rocket. When people say, "Oh, you don't have to be a rocket scientist," that's the guy they're talking about. That's where the quote came from. The rocket scientist. He comes out and says, "Yeah, we're not going there. It's just way too hard." And yet, only several, it wasn't even. I think it was barely 10 years later. He's going, "Oh yeah, we can do that." It's like, what are you talking about? You said in great detail how you cannot pull this thing off, and yeah, you know what happened. I mean, they went to him and said, "Look, we gotta do this, regardless of what happens. We got to send a rocket up there." That's all they were basically saying. They basically came to him and said, "Look, can you put a big rocket, up there far enough to at least we can say it went up there?"
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, okay, we can do that. That's not hard, but don't put any astronauts in it,
Sure,
because they're gonna die." and it worked. Again, people bought the story, and I will say this: as much as I criticize NASA, at least they got the initial concept right, which was, and I'm stealing from Matt Boylan here, which was eventually you got to take the picture. You've got to take the picture of the Earth. Unfortunately, you have to. It's the most expensive picture of all time.
Right.
You have a fake picture. You've got to create a rocket program to at least simulate, at least make it believable to where when you say, "Okay, here's the picture of the Earth," it's like, who took it? Oh, that rocket that went up. It's like, oh, okay, and people bought it, and they milked it for 43 years. And nobody would question it. Why would you question it? I didn't question it. I think I told you, or maybe I didn't the last time I talked to you, that this was right in front of my face 15, 16 years ago. And I couldn't see the forest for the trees. Where I went online, and I know I wish we could go back in time and show you, because it was really, really cool. Where I wanted to, I was running this tech support department, and I wanted to put pictures of Earth on all these monitors. And I thought I'd do different pictures for Earth. It'd be kind of a cool thing, because the globe is a cool icon. And I remember going and doing a search for pictures of the Earth from space. And I was pretty good at Boolean strings. So it was all, Earth pictures, the Earth from space, all the different variations. And I kept getting just walls and walls of the exact same image, which was the Apollo 17 image, in just different resolutions.
Right.
And I'm looking, I was going, and it doesn't take you 2 seconds to figure out. It's like, wait, this is the same picture. I mean, the exact same picture in different resolutions, maybe a couple different hues. I was going, how is this even possible? And I remember I gave up after a couple hours, because but my initial reaction was, of course it wasn't flat Earth, that the Earth was wrong or they're trying to hide anything. It was like, NASA, you suck. Your internet presence is terrible. How could you guys? Why would you not put any more pictures of the Earth from space? And it didn't occur to me that back then, even then, the edges were starting to fray on this thing, which was people were searching for, it wasn't just me. People were searching for stuff and it wasn't there, which is why in fact, the guy that created the first iPhone backdrop, which was a blue marble shop, which was completely fabricated. He had to do that because he ran into the same thing I did. which was he's like, all right, I'm going to put a cool icon of the Earth from space. And since there was nothing, he didn't have reference material to adjust. He had to create his own. And he was the first, he worked in cooperation with NASA to make it. And it's like, so.
Well, let's talk about pictures because you see, this is something which the general public, and I didn't know this either. Like you said, none of us knew. And if it wasn't for the internet, that picture would still be floating around in textbooks wherever, and people would still believe that was right. Now, when NASA tells us, recently they released pictures of Pluto, for example, or they have pictures of Saturn, or they have, pictures of Jupiter. So if they're able to take these pictures of all these other so-called planets, then why is it so difficult to take pictures of the Earth? Okay, and what we are told is that they have to make composites.
Yeah,
and that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
No,
right?
No, it doesn't. There should be depending on which lists, and the lists themselves are suspect, which is they say there's anywhere between 3 and 20,000 satellites up there in all distances. Forget about the satellites. Who cares about those? There's been, if you believe NASA, a lot of probes that have been sounded out.
Sure, like Voyager.
The Voyager series, the Pioneer series, not to mention, all the other things. Oh, let's not forget, just offhand, Apollo 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Everything from 8 through 16, they supposedly went to the moon and back as well. 9 supposedly didn't. 9 supposedly just circled the Earth. But nobody took a picture during any of those missions.
Right.
And then they talk about your procrastination. Again, you waited as long as you physically could. You waited until the very last mission on the way back, and then you took the snapshot. And in taking the snapshot on Apollo 17, knowing full well that there would not be an Apollo 18, and when they show you pictures of Saturn, beautiful pictures of Saturn and Jupiter and Mars,
right.
The Pluto one's amazing because you're looking at Pluto and that's high res. It's like, really, how are you beaming that back with, because my cell phone gets terrible reception here, and you're telling me that you beamed back a perfect high res picture of Pluto. In fact, it's more. There's better pictures of Pluto than there are of Earth.
Exactly. That's the whole point, and people don't question that. Why is that the one object in the sky that should be pictured more than anything else should be the Earth?
Yes,
we should have it from every angle, every pole, equator, you name it. We should have pictures from just about everywhere, but we don't.
No, we don't.
And the pictures that are out there. There are so many flaws in them where from one year to the next, they don't match up. Sizes of continents change, sizes of the oceans change. It's like, okay. And then the question of the shape, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson would have us believe that it's a pear shape, which was just such a joke, like, how can a scientist even make a claim like that it's a pear shape?
Now, he has since come back and said that on some radio things, because that whole that's also another thing that happened since we talked last, the mainstream explosion, where I woke up one morning and I was going, why is a Grammy-nominated rapper arguing with Neil deGrasse Tyson about the shape of the Earth, and why is everybody covering it? Everyone from Time Magazine down to MTV. But Neil deGrasse Tyson has come out recently and says, well, it's all a relative term. When I say oblate, spheroid, and pear-shaped, I mean it's undetectable by the human eye. The human eye sees it as a perfect sphere. It's like, well, why didn't you say that when you're in front of that college crowd? Why didn't you that's your disclaimer right there. It's like, you'll never be able to tell this, but it's actually technically an oblate spheroid, and it's heavier at the bottom and it's pear-shaped. It's like, that's all you have to do. It takes 5 seconds. Just tell them that. Don't say. In fact, why even bring it up? If we all look at the pictures and you say it's a perfect sphere, then why go into this little song and dance? Because he made it a topic. It wasn't like it was just off the cuff. He was in front of a university group saying this.
Sure.
And so now he's backpedaling in a way. It's like, well, you know what I mean. It was not really pear-shaped, and it's not even really an oblate spheroid. It's like, really, why'd you say oblate? Because when you look up the definition of oblate spheroid in Wikipedia, it's really clear. It's a squished basketball.
There's no way that a sphere and oblate spheroid are anywhere close to in shape to each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so
He, yeah. Why not just say it's a nearly perfect sphere? That's all you have to say.
exactly.
But yeah, that came. I mean, that helped us more than even more than a lot of things that he had done. But yeah, watching him go around again. Why talk on mainstream media? Why go on television shows and talk about this? Why even address it
Right.
if it's not? If it's not, I mean, he even went so far as to say, and I kind of got a little worried when I was watching it, where he's going, he considers this whole movement dangerous to our civilization. I was going, really? I would think that terrorism or the threat of atomic war or something like that. You'd think that would be a little more dangerous, but no, that's what he brings up. Wow.
Well, in a manner of speaking, it is dangerous because it exposes the magnitude of the matrix.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, the powers that be, that's the last thing that they would want. And that
Yeah.
brings us to an important question as to, people always question, oh, this is a psyop because it's been released. And if there wasn't a psyop, it wouldn't be, the information wouldn't be out there, And this is something I'm just going to give you my personal view on that.
Sure.
Being like a complete and 100% believer in the Bible and the God of the Bible, I would say that there's a scripture in that says there's nothing secret that shall not be revealed, and there's nothing hid that shall not be made known. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that, before Christ returns, a lot of these things which have been kept hidden, and there'll be more that'll come out, they are
Yeah.
going to be exposed, and it's basically given people a choice to make, believe the truth or continue being asleep, or the
Yeah.
blue pill people.
Yeah.
So it is not just that, these powers that be are omnipotent and there's nobody higher than them that can push them in any direction that he wants to.
Yeah.
And so there is more than just a psyop, or, yes, uh, they can be forced to do things against their will. And this may
Yeah.
be one of those things which they didn't want to do, but it is going to happen despite all their efforts to stop it from happening.
Yeah, yeah, that is one. And I actually, what you're saying there, that's a good optimistic way of looking at it, because yeah, it could be that this thing is coming out because it's inevitable.
Yes.
And that it's part of the grand plan, and maybe it's above the authority, the people on the ground, the secret societies that. This thing, because remember what I was saying for a long time, which was it felt. Uh-oh. Did you drop me for a second?
No, you're fine. You're
Oh,
on.
okay. It glitched. The which was it felt like no, I lost my train of thought. The
We were talking about why this information has come out, and you said that it felt like, well,
uh crap. The secret societies. Oh, that it was part of a natural process.
right,
That's what it was. Which was I believe that we were always supposed to figure this out. This thing was never going to be hidden forever because it's just too big. How do you hide the world forever? You can't. Not if a civilization advances, especially in technology. And that I think naturally we were supposed to find out maybe by, I don't know, the mid 70s, early 80s. Eventually some private, team is going to, go out and do
right.
things. But it never happened because the people that figured it out first were the governments, and
Right.
there was something that I don't want to pick on science too much, but I am going to use this as an example. And that is, yeah, science has brought us a lot of great things over the years, some debatable, and I'm not going to go into all the real negative stuff right now. But if the Indiana Jones, remember the first Indiana Jones movie where they took the Ark of the Covenant,
Right,
and
right.
eventually that was really the whole movie was about. And in the end, what happened? As soon as the government got it, they put it in a box and kept it away from the public, never to be seen ever. And that's because the Ark of the Covenant went against science.
Right.
It upsets too many things in the scientific world, and that is, don't be naive when you're thinking about science. Oh, no, science would never lie to us. Science is the truth. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, oh, the arrogance, where he said that science is right whether you believe in it or not. And it's like, oh, yeah? So what happens when science runs into something that can diminish science like proof of intelligent design, like the structure of the world we live in.
Right, right.
If science finds that, if they find whatever it is and they say, this could hurt, science, are we going to let the public see it? Or are we not going to let the public see it? What do you think science is going to do? It diminishes them. Their people would lose their jobs. Universities would be overturned. The science, like it's self-preservation.
Sure.
From their standpoint, it's selfish and it's not objective and it's hypocritical from a science standpoint, but it's the truth. And that is, science will show you every discovery there is. We'll publish all sorts of stuff and make it beneficial for mankind unless it hurts science. Yeah. And if it hurts science, we're going to bury it so deep that even the memory of it is never going to surface. And they tried to bury this thing because this really it's proof of intelligent design. It's proof of God, which is why I did the thing. It's like, look, you're hiding God from a population that so desperately wants to know more about God. And if once you do that, you are what are you? Are you really science anymore, or are you just another group that
right.
with power? And it's my little science rant.
Well, that gets into the question of good and evil, and that's a topic which I guess we will not really go down in this program. Actually, I'm doing a show with Patricia Steer on Sunday, and we're going to talk about that as to the real why of this. Why are they hiding it? Okay, because that's a big question. It really is, and the answer to that is not quite as simple as people always want like a 30-second answer to everything, and sorry, some topics are very complex and they need complex and long answers. So we will not approach that here. But anyway, just to recap, some of the things which you have in your own research and talking to people who have done this, they have all the evidence which is supposedly showing us that it's a globe is proving to be false. Like there's no curvature that can be measurable or seen, even from great heights. We don't see that. All this space program, when you start really dismantling it turns out that it's more fiction than it is science. And when you use the word science too, I think it's I would call it so-called science. Real science is a good thing. But when science is an agenda, then it's not.
Big money science, really.
For sure.
Money changes everything.
Right. So now that you have been in this, doing this for about a year now? Is that
almost exact. Well, my first clue was February 10th of 2015. So just over a year. Just over a year.
Okay. So are you now more convinced than ever, or have you had doubts along the way about this?
I am. No, there's never been a doubt. But what's interesting for me is it's become more real once it hit mainstream. Once the first started teasers, once I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson come on television, then I started saying, okay, apparently we're playing for real this time. It's not just we have gotten their attention to such a degree that's like, okay. Oh, what now? Because I kind of kid when I say that we're in uncharted territory, but this is new ground for me. So I'm just treating it day by day. But no, my conviction has just gotten stronger and stronger to where I'm even confident now. It's like, look, put me up. I welcome the debate, even though I know that science is just running from this. Put me up against a panel of the best NASA science. But give me Tyson, Bill Nye, the head of NASA, and the head of the Mars the Mars rover program. Put them all in a panel. Put them across from me, and you don't even have to televise it. I don't even care if it's recorded. They're gonna lose because there's nothing there on their side. The mountains of evidence that should be behind them isn't there, and they know this. Which is why anyone with letters next to their name, anybody with a PhD, they will not risk being the person that comes out and it doesn't even have to be me. There's there's people out there that can debate just as well, and they're going to get hammered. So no, my conviction is just getting stronger every week.
Speaking of Bill Nye, like this, I was doing this, very busy in my life, so I always don't find the time to do all the things I would like to, because this is more of my hobby, doing these programs, and because I am I love the truth and I like to disseminate it. But
Yeah.
one of the questions that gets asked is, how do seasons work on a flat Earth?
Sure.
So I did some research. I said, okay, let me just look into it. How do seasons supposedly work on a globe? Because we really don't pay much attention to the details of what the teaching is. And Bill Nye does some videos on YouTube, etc., about, oh, this is how the seasons are working.
Yeah.
And I started taking that apart. And Carl Sagan comes into this too, and he had this famous Voyager, the blue dot speech and all that kind of stuff. And what I came to realize is that these guys are using two models. Okay, one model is that the sun, when it suits them, one model is that the sun is the big daddy of the solar system, so-called. It's huge, gigantic, has 98% of the mass of the solar system, so much bigger, etc., etc. But when it comes to the explanation for the seasons, they turn that upside down, and they say that the sun is like a spotlight shining in exactly what we say in the flat earth, that this is how it's working. And when you really start looking at their explanation for the seasons, and even on some astronomy websites that I found, they are treating the sun like a little spotlight that is much smaller than the earth. That is the only way that explanation for seasons works. And I'm going to put this video out. It's going to be a good one. And that's so again, like they're talking to both sides of their mouth.
Yeah, agreed. There's so many little things when it comes to the solar system and NASA and all the scientists that again, the person on the street, the person again that is going to have to be explained to eventually, which is why most of my videos don't involve a lot of math, is they overlook the things because they just trust science implicitly. It's like, well, science did the equation, and they keep looking at science like they are this benign organization, kind of like NASA in a way. It's like NASA. They wear all white uniforms. They don't carry guns. They smile for the cameras and take a lot of cool pictures. I'm going. Yeah, but they were founded on the embers of the Nazi war machine, on rocket technology. They are uniquely military, but nobody cares because it's like, well, we don't see them doing military things, and so okay, fine. But science makes big mistakes, and what really bugs me is they don't own up to them. The accountability is minimal. The responsibility doesn't even seem to be there. Anyone has any look at some of their commercial failures. Forget about the stuff that they do, that's away from the public. Look at the stuff they release to public, like, I don't know, lead paint, lead gasoline, DDT, stuff like that, where they move forward without thinking of the implications. And so, don't think that science is beyond, that it's total integrity and they're beyond lying. Because
it's like medicine, the pharmaceutical industry. It's like lies are like rampant in it. Their studies, their papers, like so much fraud in it that it's. Actually, this is interesting. Sorry to interrupt you. Like, in China, I think they had passed a law or something to the effect that's, science journals, there's too much lies in it, so they're going to be they're going to be held accountable or something to that nature. And there was another article about how much lies are in science journals. This was even after that China incident. This is also in the Guardian or something. One of the mainstream papers came out and said, don't believe everything you read in the science journal. Most of it is fiction.
Yeah. Well, look at the related story. There would be the gravitational waves thing that came out just recently. It's like, it made mainstream news. Nobody understood the story, and they don't realize that the backstory is even more interesting. It's like these guys were up for a grant. They had gone years without producing anything, and like anything in the science community, it's all about results.
Yeah,
it's about putting it out there. You've got to publish something, and miraculously, before they were up for funding, it's like, oh yeah. By the way, we came up with gravitational waves here. It's like, coincidentally, after years of getting nothing, you all of a sudden produce gravitational waves. You feed it to the media, it works, and then you get you're going to get your money. There's a line from Vanilla Sky, and I didn't understand it for the longest time, which starring Tom Cruise, where it was that 9 out of 10 problems in the world revolve around money. And that was it. They needed their money to keep the lab going, to keep the research going. So they said, let's create what can we say? What story can we put out there that's interesting that the
Right.
mainstream media will latch onto? And then our backers will understand, because all the backers care about is results. It's like, oh,
Right.
I'm backing this lab. They just have a story in Newsweek magazine talking about gravitational waves. I think I'll write them a check this year. And at the same time, it goes against us. But for me, when people are showing me this, it's like, does this hurt the flat Earth movement? I was going, no. No, it doesn't hurt the flat Earth movement. It's no different than the face on Mars, the weird thing on Saturn, Pluto. Every story, cannot stress this enough, every story that you see that's space related or solar system related or whatever it is all the same subtext, which is, it doesn't matter if you believe in the face on Mars or if you even care about the gravitational waves. But once you see it, you're saying, gravitational waves, I'm thinking about it from a globe. Mars, globe. Saturn, globe. Pluto, globe. It's always the same subtext, which is you're on a globe. They could care less if you do any research on the story itself, because once you look at the story, if you even glance on it, you're immediately reinforcing the globe model in your head, which is wrong.
By the way, this gravitational waves, there's a guy, he did a video on it. I just saw it yesterday, and this is some organization that's been trying to detect these things, right? And in a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, they were ready to make this announcement, okay? And they have a panel of experts, I don't know, maybe 100, couple hundred around the world, whatever they are, these people. So they show them the data, and then they say, okay, is this data showing you these gravitational waves? And everyone on that panel said, yes, this was 4 years ago or something, that yes, we see these waves, okay? And they were ready to make this big announcement. And then it comes out that the management, of which there's 4 guys, what they do is, there's only 4, that they insert like some kind of false data into their, that's fed to these people. Yep. And then they said, no, we had inserted this in there. So therefore, none of them were able to detect the false falsehoods. So how the heck do you know any of this is? Because it's not. It's not true. It is all made up. So you know
and the computer graphic they used was completely. There's no graphic. There's no picture of what they're taking. So it was all an artist rendition of it, and and that story ran for 2-3 days on the front page of just about. I mean, why was it at the front page of Time magazine, the New York Times? Gravitational is because the average person. That's the part that seemed sort of iffy to me anyway. Because the average person on the street knows nothing about these concepts.
Sure.
It's like they might know.
Yeah, why is it even on the mainstream anyway? Like nobody knows what the heck these things are anyways.
Yeah, I mean, most people, if you asked them to describe a black hole, wouldn't be able to fit, let alone 2 black holes coming next to each other in the whole relationship and who's detecting it and the device. But then once you start looking into the story and looking at how big the device was that was supposedly detecting and how much money it took to build it, and it's like, oh, you're going to shut this whole. Basically, they were running out of time. We've seen this in scientific research forever, and it happens all the time. And that is, look, if you're supposed to create, you're supposed to do research and you're supposed to get results. If you don't get results, you shut the project down. Everybody knows this. And so after a while, the scientists figured out, well, we don't want to shut down. I don't want to move on to a new project. I don't want to go back to the university and try to figure out what I'm going to do next. They want to keep it going as long as they can. But yeah, it was. But it didn't hurt us in the slightest.
No, it weren't. The truth obviously is, no matter how many lies are told, in the end, the truth is going to remain the truth, and it cannot never be changed. Agreed. So this, when you start looking for these things nowadays, whenever I'm watching, let's say, a TV program or a movie or something, the absolute number of references, and a lot of times the dialogue has nothing to do with the story, but it'll somehow involve something about space, something about a sphere, something about the globe, something about the moon. And I'm going, man, that had nothing to do with the story. Why is it inserted in there? And once you start looking for those things, it is just shocking how much propaganda is out there. The movie Martian, have you seen it?
That movie bothered me from its inception all the way to it's been nominated for Academy Awards.
Oh, no doubt.
and first of all, I'm a media junkie. I For forever, I watched movies and television shows. I absorbed all media. And when it came to movies, I was very, very good at picking up on plot. We all know this. The reason why we call it the movie formula is because we've seen it before. Oh, it's the buddy cop show. Oh, it's the romantic comedy thing and people are guessing how the plot line is going to go.
Yeah, sure.
When I saw The Martian come down the road, first of all, I knew the Mission to Mars movie from back in 2000, where Don Cheadle was trapped he was stuck on Mars and nobody knew he was there. So when they sent people knew that there was something wrong with the mission. So they sent another team to figure out what was going on. All The Martian with Matt Damon is a continuation of that. That's all it is. So instead of Don Cheadle being, you didn't know what was going on, it was like, following his life for the last year or so while he was there until the rescue mission showed up. That's all it was. There was nothing new about that movie whatsoever.
It was boring. It was boring movie. It was like, I don't know why. Like I was bored in the movie. There's no story to it.
There was no story to it, but it was the most the biggest reinforcement movie they've had in years.
Oh yes, absolutely.
When it came to space, to the point where I downloaded it and watched it. But when he dug up the Mars rover to help him to help him complete his mission, I was just rolling my eyes and going, there's your tie-in right there. Because remember, it was set slightly in the future. So the Mars rover brings it back to the past, because we all know the Mars rover is still up there, still running, even though the battery supposedly died 7 years ago. And I know most people don't even know how their cars work. But look, when your battery dies, really dies, not like runs out of charge.
Yeah, right. It's dead.
It's dead. You cannot jump it. You cannot. The battery will not take power anymore. Batteries only have a certain shelf life. After that, it's done.
Right.
That Mars rover that's up there now is dead.
Yeah.
It's dead. I'm sorry. It's not anywhere. But the fact that they keep saying, it's like, oh yeah, we're just going to keep running the pictures from it 7 years after the battery died. But yeah, The Martian was, and again, why is it nominated? It is not that good a movie. Yeah, it scored fine on Rotten Tomatoes, but a Best Picture of the Year nominee? What, are you kidding?
Yeah.
It's a pretty weak year. Not knocking Matt Damon as an actor. He did a fine.
He was okay in it. Like, I've seen him act better, but he was just going through the motions by the looks of it.
Yeah. Plus, we've already seen him. He was just rescued in Interstellar.
Right.
He was the guy in Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, it's not even a new role for him. So and really, that's what you're. Yeah, The Martian was, but yeah, it was a big reinforcement movie, and I think it got a push into the Oscar nominations because they want to keep.
The
Oscars
are not fixed, are they?
Oh no! Don't get me started on the Oscars. The first time when I saw Saving Private Ryan lose to Shakespeare in Love. and Steven Spielberg directed Saving Private Ryan, the greatest World War II epic of all time, right? And it lost Best Picture to Shakespeare in Love. And I was like, what? Gwyneth Paltrow just beat the entire World War II, epic? How'd that happen? I was like, but yeah, it was ridiculous. It was fixed. But yeah, my point is they're pushing The Martian as hard as they can because, and look what was before that, Gravity.
Yeah, Interstellar.
Interstellar. We've had a lot of very high profile space movies recently.
Yeah. And this Martian, what I took away from it was that this was basically nothing more than a high production commercial for NASA, because every second frame in there you saw NASA, right? And the space program, the Chinese space program, and they all put them all.
Oh yeah, they brought them in. Yeah, the Chinese. We're going to help. Yeah, it's all one group. We're going to help rescue this guy.
And secondly, like one more thing which you may have missed in it was that what does Matt Damon do? He burns a cross when he's going to grow his potatoes. Okay, so there you go. So they're going to attack the Bible and they're going to push this agenda, and you know what, people don't see it, but there it is. It is nothing more than a commercial. It's a boring movie. It did not keep me entertained whatsoever. I like it. Like a media junkie like yourself, I like a good movie with a good story, but no, this was not it. So that again kind of proves, like with this Interstellar, Gravity, all these big movies, what they want to do is put that image, and especially in this Martian, when they went back they were almost to the back home, and then they had to take a slingshot and get back up towards Mars. Wanted to see the big, beautiful Earth. NASA should take lessons from them because at least they do a better job. But when they showed that image, and I watched this in 3D, Mark, when they showed that image of the Earth approaching, I looked at it and I said, "No, impossible. This is not possible.
I will say
This is, sorry,
I
go
will
ahead.
say I know I will say this that I don't mean to interrupt, but that is the one. If there is any downside to the whole flat Earth thing, it has taken a taste. Because I was a big science fiction guy, I still am. But the space movies now, unless it's a real fantasy-based thing where you're talking about a whole nother thing in galaxies far, far away type stuff. But if it's anywhere close to home, I watch it now with completely new eyes. I'm going,
Me
I
too.
can't,
Me too.
I can't. It's because your suspension of disbelief is really muddied. You're going, yeah, I want to believe it, but
Nah.
yeah, not because it conflicts. The stronger you are in the new model, how can you watch it? Like I don't think I have. Even though I considered Interstellar a pretty decent movie, I watched it once. I mean, I'll watch the movies once, but now it's like,
Nah, I
and
can't. Even Interstellar, I was after the end, but it was a long movie towards the end. I'm
yeah,
going, okay,
was
man, get on, get over with now. And Gravity was just crap. And again,
uh,
highly rated, highly rated.
highly
Whatever,
rated, and
right?
yeah, and again,
Yeah,
real close, everything in near Earth orbit, beautiful shots.
yeah, yeah. Nice shot. Nice, nice.
Beautiful movie in 3D, but that shows you the effects, how far you can go. In fact,
Sure.
there was a guy made I think it was Odd TV, one of the guys where he made, I can't remember what software package he used, like I don't know, it was Studio or something like that, but he did his own interior ISS footage where he moved the camera to the window and showed the Earth below, right? But he didn't tell you this till after he showed it to you. He goes, look at this ISS footage, right? And then he showed you, baby, this is how I did it.
I
And I
know.
was like, oh
Oh
man,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I saw that one.
it was good. It's like, yeah, it's like then that he goes, I did this with nothing. It cost me almost nothing to do. Imagine what you could do with an unlimited budget, and yeah.
It's like those UFO footage, which this is a real UFO, and then it's like so easy to fake those. So if you can do it at home nowadays with the equipment we have,
Yeah.
with the NASA and stuff, why it's anyhow. So yeah, so media, you gotta be really careful, and when you're watching it, be critical
Yeah.
because it is a programming. It's not just a TV program. But the word program
Yeah.
is very appropriate because it is programming people's minds into believing something that is not real. And
Oh yeah.
this programming, and I did a video. My last video I did was on the heliocentric, or just basically the imagery of the sun.
Yeah.
It is so prevalent in our world. Those are the two images: one of the sun and one of the globe.
Yep.
It is everywhere in your face, on the Statue of Liberty on our head with the sun rays shooting out. It's like everywhere
Yeah.
you go. And that again should be a red flag for people.
Yeah.
Everything that is being pushed by the occult, it is the false. And they should, basically, people shouldn't believe anything they see anyways. Because it's a safe thing to believe that
Yeah.
it's a lie and to prove it that it is the truth.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that, prove all things. And that's
Yeah.
what we should do. So
Agreed.
now, if you're a newbie to this topic here, Mark, before we
Uh-huh.
go, like
Sure.
what would you recommend that they, where do they begin,
Well, there's
and how
so
should they approach this topic? Because it is, like we said, it's a shock to the system.
Yeah, there's so much content out there now. Quick numbers, if anyone doesn't realize how fast this thing is trending, a year ago, because it's been a year since the Flat Earth clues, a year ago when I was looking at, if you typed in Flat Earth into YouTube and didn't hit any filters, there was maybe 50,000 relevant hits,
Mm-hmm.
relevant hits.
Right.
You do the same thing as of yesterday, it was about 4.7 million, which is 10,000% increase in a year. So there's a lot of content you can look at. Really, but the cream seems to rise to the top. So if you're a newbie into this, start with the basics. There's some great stuff. So if you type in flat Earth and just hit the filter, the like the first 10, 20 entries, they're all really, really good. If you don't want to be overwhelmed, if you don't want to lose sleep, I know a lot of people are just going to lose sleep for 3-4 days anyway. It's like, oh, I can't believe this. But I've got a list on my channel called the Flat Earth Short List, and I only think one of them may be mine, but the rest are just other people, and they're brief, anything from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, and they cover a lot of different perspectives because I try to hit people from different angles to try to give them different takes on it. That's what I recommend to newbies that are just getting into this. Just, start slow, pace yourself, because I know you want to absorb everything fast, but there's so much content out there that you're going to get overwhelmed pretty quickly. That end, don't worry, when you're done, losing sleep for 3 and 4 days and you get this energy release, because a lot of people, it affects people differently. You don't know what to do with that energy. It's like because you want the world, because now that you've seen the world changed in your eyes, you want it to change now. Right. You want it to change like right now. It's like, why isn't this world changing right now? I'm so pumped up. Why isn't everybody seeing this? And you want to tell people. That's the follow up to that, which is once you get that snap aha moment in your head, don't be so anxious to try to convince your family members in 2 hours, because what everyone forgets, including me, is how long it took you to get to that point. Right. It took you 3 days. It took you 2 weeks. And you're going to try to convince somebody over dinner or coffee in an hour or 2 hours. You're not going to do it. The most you can hope for is put the seed in their head and let it progress naturally. You don't have to push it, because they're going to have to resolve it, because it's something you can't get rid of it. Once it's in your head, it's in your head. You can't change. I don't want to steal the Matrix reference too much, but it's true. Once you get to that point, you can't go back. How could you? There's nothing to go back to. You're really going to embrace the globe again? Right. You can't get plugged back in. It's like, nope. I believe the globe. I mean, yeah, scientists. Yeah, you got a PhD. Yeah, you never let go in the first place. Right. But as far as newbies, just any of the top 50 videos are good that are out there. I think sort by relevance. There's going to be a few debunkers in there, but watch more than one person. Don't just gravitate to one person. There's a lot of really, really great content, and there's more people coming out every week. Yeah. To where the players that are in it now are different than they were a year ago. And, right. It's a lot of fun. So just stay positive, and again, pace yourself. That's what I really recommend.
I read a really good quote. It said, once you're awake, it's hard to go back to sheep.
That's good. That's really good. I like that. It's true.
Yeah, it is
true. How can you go back, especially with something like this? It's not like what I try to tell people is like, look, this is different than other conspiracies where it's dark and sinister. Once you get into this, you've never been anything like this before, because it's your world. You can't ignore it. Like people say, oh, 9/11, they can forget about it. You live in Los Angeles. Do you really care? Yeah, maybe you do, but you're not in New York. This is different because you live here. Which is why it's so polarizing. And by the way, the other thing for newbies out there is people react. You're going to brace against it. People get nobody's on the fence with this thing. No, you either really like it or you really hate it.
Hate it, yep.
And the forums just get lit up. And I don't get mad at people, because I would have laughed them out of the room too. If you don't laugh at this thing, if you don't make fun of it, there's probably something wrong with you. Because we're so conditioned. Everybody's so conditioned that that's what you do. You brace against it. And at first it's like, there's no way this could actually be happening. And you laugh, and then you realize that there's something else going on. And it's why it's resonating so well. If you have any doubt, again, look at the amount of women that are getting involved in this thing. Women have a sense for these things. They don't fall for the crap. And they're embracing this. So
yeah, true. Yeah. One more question, if you have got a couple of minutes.
Sure. What you got?
This was an interesting one, because I believe the first time I heard this was on your show with a pilot, and the topic was that when planes fly across a sphere, it is necessary that they should be nosing down a little bit.
Or up. Your choice. Yeah, yeah. They can't stay. If
They,
it's a sphere, one of two things would happen. Either they're going to keep gaining elevation
right.
because the level is going to keep pulling. The sphere is going to start dropping below them, and they're going to keep going, getting higher and higher. Or gravity, the magical word for science, is going to keep pulling them down.
Right.
And so either they're going to have to keep nosing down or they're going to have to keep nosing up, depending on what side of science you're going to look at
Sure.
it. And they never do. Once you get it, anyone's done commercial flight, once they get up there, it's just they just stay flat, 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 flat the entire way, and then they go down. They never have to adjust their flight. And in fact, we've seen people with special little altimeter apps, or not altimeter apps, but whatever it's called, directional apps, where they put it on their plane, on their seat when they're in a commercial plane, and it doesn't
Right.
move. Once it gets up to a certain point, it doesn't move. That's not possible. And the pilots, the Air Force pilot I had and the flight instructor, they both said the same thing. And the argument, people come back and say, well, aren't all the pilots in on it then? Don't they know? It's like, no. Why would they even look for it? He goes,
Yeah, they're not looking for it yet.
Unless you're looking for it, you're not going to see it. It's hidden literally in plain sight, and you're not going to see it unless it's in your head, which is why everyone's getting it now, because because now they're thinking in that term. It's like, well, wait, what if it is flat? And now they're starting to work all the details out. With the pilots, like, yeah, they just missed it.
Exactly, like on a ball, like there's no possible way once you reach cruising altitude that you can keep flying straight. It has to.
Yeah,
It's just logical that your ball's going away further and further away. You're getting higher and higher up. That
yeah,
makes total sense. And actually, I took a flight recently, and now that you start looking for these things, I usually sit in an aisle, more leg room, but now I sit on windows, and I'm going to be flying next month as well. I'm going to India, as a matter of fact, so there'll be a nice long flight.
yeah,
So we're going to take a video cam by my iPhone or whatever. Nice. And I took a lot of shots. Okay, this was a perfect time because it was a morning flight around 6:30 in the morning. The sun had not yet come up. So about half an hour into the flight, the sunrise starts. And I took a lot of photographs, and the horizon was beautiful because the sun was lighting the horizon, and it was the line that it is absolutely straight was
yeah,
amazing. And one thing that really stood in my mind was when the plane took off, it was dark. And it was a clear night. And up in, this was in Manitoba, and like their winters are crisp and clear. And, you get all the northern lights and everything. And as the plane took off, it kind of banked. And in the window, like it was pointing up towards the sky
yeah.
a little bit. The stars. I've never seen stars like that. They were like I could have reached out the window and grabbed it. It was like
Wow,
it was something that was so dramatic
that's
that
great.
I tried to take a picture, but regrettably I was not ready, and then it flashed and it didn't come out.
Yeah,
But that again, all those things that show you. This morning is a beautiful, clear, sunny day, and I looked at the sun, and you can see the sun rays. They're just spread out over a small area. Like if it's 93 million miles away, it should be covering the whole
oh, yeah,
visible surface that I'm looking at, right? It
yep,
doesn't.
yep,
So all those things point to that, that these objects are not like millions and quadrillions of miles away. They're much closer to us.
yeah,
And these are the things we begin to observe. And, that flight totally debunked that people said, oh, you can see the curvature from 35,000 feet. No, you cannot see it. There is
no,
no curvature to be seen. None. Not
none.
even like a millimeter.
Yeah, yeah. Again, people. It was a challenge I put out to people right off the bat. I go, look, because I've heard that too. It's like, oh, I can see the curvature of the airplane. Or really, take a picture of it, put it on your laptop, see if there's still a curvature. If there is, you email it to me, and I will be happy to talk about it on air. No one has done it. No one. And it's like, there's a lot of people taking airplane flights out there, and so it's like, why not? Well, it's because something changed. It's like I'm sure there's been people. They took the picture, they went home, they looked at it, there's going, and then who knows? They're probably a flat earther now and never called to thank me.
Can I offer like one more slightly different perspective on your dome? Because you believe
Sure,
in the dome, right?
sure.
And the Bible says that he has set a tabernacle.
Yep.
It describes it as a tabernacle, which is a tent, and it's rectangular. And this specifically, if you read the Old Testament, they had the tent the tent, the tabernacle of testimony, which had very specific dimensions, but it was rectangular. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would think that that the structure itself is more of a rectangle with a flat roof. Okay, which would make sense if there's waters
Sure.
above it, like it's like a swimming
Sure.
pool, rather than
Sure.
having a curb, which we have a problem with water on the curb and everything else. One of the things is why we see it as a dome or a curve is because our eyes are round. We are round lenses, okay? When we're looking at the distance, our range of vision is further straight ahead. And if you
Yeah.
look straight ahead, you will see it will be straight. But when out of the sides of our eyes, we see a curve. But that's just
Ah.
a perception. It is not
Sure.
that. See, if you look at the sky and it's like this level straight, and even on 50 miles away, it looks like it's curving down. But if you drove 50 miles, it will still be level. And I believe you can go anywhere on the earth, it will still be level.
Yeah.
But it's just the perception that it's sloping. So not that there isn't a structure, but I'm saying that it may well be a rectangular structure, kind of like a swimming pool at the bottom and a swimming pool on the top, and we are in the middle.
Nice. Well, hopefully we'll find out soon.
Okay. Well, Mark, it's been very nice having you back on, and it's good to talk about these things. And you're right, we keep learning more and more new things.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to get back, every once in a while and just talk about these things, and then whatever new information comes out, to share it with the listeners. And like yourself, I would just encourage the listeners, that have an open mind and to research these things. Because if
Yeah.
somebody does serious research, it is going to at least give them serious doubt about
Yeah.
the globe. Okay? They may not get convinced about the flat earth, but at least they will doubt the globe because it is not as cut and dry as they think it is.
Yeah. Not as advertised.
So what about your website or your contacts? Where can people see your work?
Sure. The website is enclosedworld.com. The YouTube channel is Mark K. Sargent, but really the easiest way is just type in flat Earth clues into any search engine. You'll eventually get there. My radio show currently is Strange World on True Frequency Network, and as of last night, apparently I have an app, which is now so a listener actually
Really?
built an app for me. So it
Good.
is. It's at itunes.apple.com, and it is Flat Earth Clues by Mark Sargent. And I have to make a video today to let people know there's an app. I haven't even put it on my phone yet, but a great listener built it for me, and so I'll give them all the credit and the thing. I don't even know if they're charging for it. It might be free, but I know it's probably going to be dirt cheap, whatever it is. So yeah, fun.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so that's the contact information for Mark. He has I know you have a lot of videos and a lot of interviews and with different people. So, I mean, there's enough information that people can be listening for the next. I would suggest download it, play it
Yeah,
in your car, or wherever you're at work or whenever you have time.
yeah.
And once a person is hooked on this topic, there's going to be
Oh
no
yeah,
going back.
exactly.
Any closing words, Mark?
Other than what I try to say whenever I get a chance is treat others better than you treat yourself. It'll be a better world, a flat world.
Okay. Amen. All right, Mark, take care. And thank you for getting up so early to be here. And we'll get back together again in the near future and talk some more flat earth.
Thanks very much.